Hello there, in today's video we're going to be talking about the 9 most unpopular opinions in photography. It might be 8, it might be more. We're not really very good at counting, but it's also a joke about last week's video. So, let's go. Before we get into that though, if you haven't checked out the Raw Room yet, please do so because it's my brand new online platform to be a detailed and in-depth photography resource just for you. For just £5.99 a month, you can get access to the full landscape photography masterclass. Recent additions have also got on there. One which is an awesome conversation about things to consider before you start doing vlogging yourself. There's also a tutorial on there about what to consider or what to look for to figure out if a composition is going to work or not. Just go to firstmanphotography.com/rawroom or hit the link down below. You can cancel at any time and I think you're going to love it. So after last week's video, which was pretty serious and caused a bit of a stir, I wanted to lighten the mood a little bit because I do have another one that's quite serious coming up in the pipeline, and photography's supposed to be fun, so I wanted to do some of that on today's video. Now you may be aware, but I, a little while ago, started a new podcast with Gary Goff and Paul G. Johnson. We called ourselves the Photo Nerds. We're now up to about 14 episodes, I think, and it's really starting to gain some traction. But I wanted to show you it, just to let you know more about it. So what I'm going to do is just play an episode for you. I think it's our best one yet. And we talk about the things that are unpopular opinions in photography. So grab yourselves a cup of tea or a glass of wine and then just enjoy this. If you've already seen it, I do apologise. Just leave a comment down below to let other people know what you think about the podcast. I would really appreciate that. So if you like it though, please subscribe to the podcast channel. Find it on all your favourite podcast places like iTunes and Spotify. Any reviews you want to give as well would be much appreciated. But yeah, I hope you enjoy it. It's a great conversation. There's some really funny bits as well. So I'll just run that so you can enjoy it now.
I do love the way our podcasts start, by the way. There isn't an official
start.
Yeah, there's no drum roll. There's no jingle. We just start talking.
Start talking absolute twaddle.
Right, totally unprepared as always, but...
What are we talking about today then?
Found a really interesting article that F-Stoppers did quite recently, and I've only read 2 of them out. I haven't read the others out, so this will be new to all of us. So this should be quite interesting. What is your unpopular photography opinions? And we all have them. Unpopular photography opinions. F-Stoppers talk about the 29 from industry pros. 29.
Is this unpopular opinions that they have as photographers?
About photography
Right.
as photographers.
Okay.
I'm guessing. I haven't read them. I've only read the first 2. So, what do you think, guys? Should we go for this?
Yeah, go for it.
Right. I won't read the first one out. If anything, we'll come back to the first one.
Pretty contentious, the first one, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've only read 2 of them. Now let me read the second one out. So I'll just read this exactly as F-Stoppers have printed it. Can we put a link to this?
Yeah, I think so. And then we'll put
Stick a link
in
in the description, yeah.
I'm sure they're not going to moan too much and complain, are they? Medium format cameras are completely overhyped. You'll almost always produce better quality images with full frame and the right lenses.
Okay.
Bear in mind, these are unpopular opinions from current industry professional photographers. So they're all assuming medium format's a complete waste of time. Do you think it's because they're so expensive to buy?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a complete. I don't think they're a complete waste of time at all.
No.
But but I also don't think that they have full frame medium format lenses have any bearing on how good the photo is.
No.
Either.
Sorry. You don't think the lenses make...
No, not to the overall picture. Like, not to the story you're telling. Like, you can get some of the greatest pictures of the last 10 years have been taken on phones. Haven't they? It's not,
yeah.
I don't think it's...
I think they're talking about it from an industry point of view, so I presume that professionals...
Yeah, from an image quality point... If we're talking purely from an image quality point of view, I don't really care, to be honest.
No, but I mean, even as a working professional, who needs a medium format camera? I suppose guys who are printing huge.
I think the thing I've got about that is that they're saying you will get better images with a full frame camera over a medium format camera.
But what do
with
they
the
mean by
right
better?
lens.
That's what I'm saying. Is that they're talking image quality?
Yeah, well, I would presume so.
No, because they're only going to produce bigger files. Bigger files will allow more manipulation and more, and the ability to print bigger. But that's all.
In my ignorance, I would have thought a medium format camera with those better lenses on, with a full frame camera, would produce.
If we're talking image quality, those Fujifilm medium format cameras I've tested out, they produce better image quality than my Canon full frame.
Makes sense.
Like better dynamic range, amazing background blur if you're using them for portraits, and the file size is big as well. And then, obviously they're making the 100 megapixel one now as well. I'm fascinated to try that out.
But if they made that much of a difference, though, Paul, anybody who
Adam,
I'm sorry, Jesus,
I'm Paul.
we'll cut that out. If they made that much of a difference, then if you were a photographer that really loved your competitions, then surely you're going to fork out, spend more money to buy the camera that's guaranteed to take better pictures.
Yeah, I didn't say they make a difference. It makes a difference. I think there is a difference. Does it make a difference to you as the artist? I don't think it does.
I'm 100% in agreement with that, because I've made that comment in the past. APS-C versus full frame versus medium format. It's you're still going to get great images with any of those.
So I've been thinking
cameras.
about this a little bit recently. So if you imagine a triangle, and at the 3 points of the triangle, right, you've got problems, you've got budget, and you've got desire.
Yeah.
Right. So if you think about, we should be buying gear on the basis that it solves a problem for us that we've got. Yeah. Whether that's you want to start taking pictures, so you buy a camera.
Yeah.
You're getting wet, so you buy a raincoat, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You then have budget becomes part of that. So what budget do you need to actually solve that problem? So you've got those two things tying quite nicely together. But then desire pulls us in a completely another direction, doesn't it?
It does.
It ups the budget, and the problem that it's solving is less important because we've just got a desire for that thing. So it's about trying to find that sweet spot in the middle of all three of those things, right in the middle of that triangle.
Sure.
Which is going to make you happy, basically.
I think another thing is future-proofing. I think one of the big influences for me when I buy anything, whether it's a computer or a camera, is how long is it going to be before this is obsolete. But, I can say that the difference between my 800E and my 850, it's negligible.
The future-proofing thing is genuine, though, isn't it? Because I was, funnily enough, I was going through some old videos yesterday, and I'm putting them up on my 5K monitor, and they're absolutely tiny. They're like literally, it was like that I used to take on the early mobile phones, and it's just like this tiny little box in the middle of a screen, and it looks awful. So
what was that on?
What
was a tiny little box?
Just
an image.
Yeah, the actual image, the video image.
The video image.
Yeah, so it was absolutely tiny. So as we go through the years and these monitors get bigger and they get more resolution, then that does make a difference. I think with the difference between full frame and medium format, though, where you're going from like 50 megapixels up to 100, it's not really going to make much difference. However, if you did want to then blow those images up to 10-foot wide images, like we mentioned the other week, then the medium format does make a difference. And so you can blow smaller resolution images up that big, but when you're getting close, it doesn't hold up.
No.
And like we were talking about the other week, I like getting in close.
Of course.
So then when you have that medium format with that massive resolution and you get up right close and you just think, wow, this is as good close-up as it is 10 meters away.
I'm just going to ask you a quick question. What frames per second do they shoot movies at? Is it 25?
25.
25.
Well,
PAL, yeah.
what's really interesting is I was looking at frame rates for my vlogs and looking at why the films still use 25 frames per second is because it's the cheapest, most effective way to do it.
24 frames a second is what movies use.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it has that more
like 9.7 or something in it.
Filmy effect, but it's only got that filmy look because actually the quality is not that good. And what they're saying is the production costs to go up frames per second is huge. Hence the reason the films aren't doing it. So my argument is if we're going to get bigger televisions and bigger monitors and bigger screens, surely one of the first things that's really going to show its ugly head is stuff like film.
I don't know, because I mean, with that, the reason 24 frames a second works with film is because it provides a motion blur. So you start to get that natural that we see as well with our own eyes, that kind of natural motion blur. So you've got a car chase in a film, and you've got the camera panning round, and it goes blurry.
Yeah,
but it's 24 frames a second.
The argument to that is the only reason that we're used to that motion blur is because that's how we've watched films for donkey's years.
But the thing is, when you do that, if you had that at 60 frames a second and it was all sharp, I think it would be quite jarring.
Yeah.
Whereas for sport, that's what you want. Because if the ball gets kicked, if a football gets kicked across the pitch, we've got a little friend.
Oh, yeah.
If the ball gets kicked across the pitch and that ball then goes blurry, that's no good, is it? You want that ball nice and sharp.
Yeah. I don't know, because some people say it looks like a sitcom look when you're shooting a higher frames per second. I think that, it was brilliant because it was broadcasters and filmmakers that were talking about it, and the arguments that the fact that the 24 frames per second is only perceived as being better is because we're used to it. No, because we're used to it.
Oh, right, okay.
And if we actually fell asleep for 5 years and woke up with amnesia and looked at the 60 frames per second, we would prefer it. That's an argument.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Another thing, though, let me throw this back at you. Why on earth do you need a 5K monitor? I didn't know they existed, by the way.
Mine's a 5K monitor.
Well, because it came on. It came on the computer that I bought. If it had a it's an iMac, so it's all built in. If it had a 4K screen, though. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting one because obviously I've got 2 monitors now, and one of them I use primarily for printing with, and the other one I use primarily for social media and YouTube because there is a different colour cast between the two. One of them, it's the colour cast is a lot more green, and the other, what you find with these devices with the Retina displays is the far more magenta in the colour cast.
Talk about technology and moving on, and film as well. Isn't it strange how we don't think that maybe photography's come on leaps and bounds until you look at an old sitcom from maybe the 80s or something?
Yeah.
You know, look at Only Fools and Horses. It's forever been run on Sky, and the quality is just dreadful, isn't it? I mean, but we used to watch that thinking, "Oh, I've got the best TV in the world."
That even is true of the aspect ratio, isn't it? When you see a 4:3 aspect ratio on a 16:9 screen now, it just looks old, doesn't it?
But going back to that, Gary, that they mentioned. Going back to that, they mentioned. Have they backed it up? Has it said anything underneath it? Have they backed up why they're saying that a full frame camera with a...
No, these are just a list of the unpopular opinions.
I mean, I can understand where they're coming from. I could not that it is better. No, that's not what I'm saying. I just think that what it does emphasise is that the kit makes the picture, and that's what you said when we first started talking. I mean, how many times have you had somebody comment on your video, "I wish I had a camera like yours so I could get shots like you get"?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things. It's probably gone out by now, but I'm going to mention on the video going out this week is that I think it's the important thing for me with any genre of photography is the visualization at the beginning. What have you got in your mind for that piece of artwork or photograph to become, and then what's the end product, whether it's a print or a digital file that you deliver in, that's the only thing that matters. What's your story that you're trying to tell, and what's the end product? Everything else in the middle, how you get that pathway that you take to get to that point, is completely irrelevant.
I think it's a really, really valid comment, and actually for 99.9% of people who watch us, you've really got to get into that mindset. It's a little bit different if you've got a brief. Yeah. So you've got a brief from a company that you've got to shoot X, Y, and Z, or it's a little bit different when you're shooting a wedding like you're doing because everything's got to be spot on. But I mentioned it in my last vlog is that it's the image that you're taking at the end of the day is really for you. And I know you mentioned it in your vlogs as well, haven't you?
I'm not sure it even is different for a wedding, because you, as the wedding photographer, you've got a visual idea of how you want things to look.
Sure.
And you're going through a process to get to that final image. And it's that how that process works doesn't really matter. There's different ways of doing it, and those ways of doing it are changing over the years as well. Like, it used to be film, it used to be, and then it went digital, and you get to that final image, and all the tech and all the gear that we talk about so often and so much, and I'm guilty of it as well, that all sits in the middle.
Yes.
And it really doesn't matter because that's constantly changing.
Yeah.
The thing that has never changed since photography began is there was a visual idea of how that artwork needed to look, and there was an end product. I listened to a really interesting video from that Ansel Adams had done an interview with the BBC the other week, and he talked about that, and he kind of said that that's basically what he says, is that you got this initial idea and then the final print, and he was also talking about, this was in the 1980s. He said I've seen some electronic images, and he said it's really exciting where things are going. That because he donated a load of his negatives to a university, I think, so they could practice reproducing them for non-commercial use. And he said that may become obsolete because of these electronic images that I've seen. So even he, right back in the 80s, was excited about the potential of digital photography, and just this whole bit in the middle that we're kind of focused on so much it's changing, and it doesn't really matter. It
was interesting, the comment that Charlie Waite made on one of your videos is, you know how he said, if anybody's watched it, hasn't watched it, I do apologise, but he basically said, when you were talking about the conditions, if the conditions weren't right, I would come back another day. And then he backed that up with the fact that the reason was because he was developing to transparencies, and you couldn't manipulate the image at all with those transparencies, or it was very difficult to
colour,
and that goes back to the number of people that say, well, I'm a proponent of trying to get it right in camera, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do, but because technology has moved on, it means that it's not necessary to get it right in camera, and the post-processing software gives us that opportunity to then be more artistic with what we do from a manipulative point of view.
And it's where personal taste and personal preference comes in as well, because whether you shoot in RAW or JPEG essentially doesn't matter, does it?
No.
I would encourage people to shoot in RAW because it gives you so much more control. But if you're capturing those images in camera with a JPEG kind of filter essentially applied by a Fujifilm camera, like that one of the sepia looks or something that you're applying, and that's what you want at the end product,
and it looks,
that's what you
like
visualized, then that's fine, isn't it? It's just,
I think what sticks in my craw a little bit is when people say, I get it right in camera, as if to say, well,
as if they want some brownie points.
Exactly. And the people that don't,
there is,
and I've seen some really, I'm going to say some really popular photographers that have basically said, well, this image is, I got all this in camera, and
that doesn't make it better. It doesn't give it any more credit because you. No.
And on the flip side, if you shoot in JPEG, great.
There is another way of looking at it, of course, is that your camera is a tool.
Yeah.
So if your current camera is shot at 5 frames per second, but then you got into sport, then even though your camera takes brilliant pictures, there's a better tool out there. A better tool that'll shoot at 15 frames per second. So the point I'm making is, I shoot commercial work, but commercial work is for small print in magazines and also for the website. Now, if I got more and more work whereby people wanted big billboard, then I'd have to consider upgrading.
And that goes exactly back to my initial point about the triangle. Because at that point, the problem is there, isn't it?
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
You need to meet that problem, don't you?
And I think that's what the camera is. The camera is a tool. To get you what you're visualizing and what you want, or what your brief is if you're a pro.
And that's the thing, we're capturing light with some form of light sensitive material, aren't we? That's what photography is.
Writing with light.
And that's how it started. And then the print of the final thing at the end, that's never going to change as long as photography exists.
That's right.
The stuff we're capturing it with in the middle is going to change and has changed. And we're going to be all shooting stuff. We're going to be attaching.
It's what we intend to use.
We're going to be attaching big fat lenses to this.
That's right.
In the next 10, 15 years, aren't we? And it's going to look great.
If not sooner. Yeah.
It's the end result at the end of the day, isn't it?
Did they back it up at all? Have they said anything?
No. These are just 29 opinions.
Well, I think we've covered that one.
Shoot very interesting,
shoot with what you like as long as you enjoy it, and you're not shooting for a brief where you need that tool.
But I suppose this is why they're called unpopular opinions. Let's go for number three. Number 3. This is
how many was there? With
29.
29.
How long have we spent?
We've only talked about one. But it's quite fascinating, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is brilliant. I love this. Shooting film in the digital age is photographic masturbation. It may be self-gratifying, but it doesn't do anything for anyone else. I absolutely love that. I do, because I love film. Honestly, it's going to turn around. More and more people are going to shoot film.
I agree.
Just because it's an event. Honestly,
I think it was what we were talking about.
Changes you.
Is that how you describe masturbation then? As an event?
No, but just try going out shooting with a bit of black duct tape, okay, carpet tape, whatever you want to call it,
You've mentioned
on
this.
your
I'm
lens.
not sticking.
Just so, in other words,
carpet
you can't see the picture that you've just taken, and it'll change the way that you shoot forever.
I've got.
It makes you think
I
more.
just can't get on board with that, Gary. Like it's.
But what about the light?
It's like when I was a cop, I'm getting a bit bored that day, so I handcuff myself to make it more interesting. That's essentially what you're saying to do.
We brought this up on a previous podcast,
Yeah.
and I disagreed with you and was siding more with Adam. But the more I started to think about it, particularly with the AI
Yeah.
debate that we had a couple of weeks ago, I can see the younger generation going back to it more and more, because what you were saying about technology, for us, technology is new, but eventually there are going to be a generation where the technology we think is new is old hat to them.
Do you think the youth of today, though, when someone that's 16 now, when they start doing landscape photography, maybe in 10 years' time, they're going to be slowing down? Like, do you think they're going to, when everything's so instant now and here?
No, but I think they're going to be fascinated by it. They're definitely going to be Yeah, I do. I'll give you an example. There's a very popular vlogger and a very good photographer. I'm not going to mention his name, but he said on a recent podcast, every time he takes a picture, he brackets his shots 5 pictures. So 2 stops either side.
Yeah.
That's 5 pictures. And he says, and he always does that to make sure when he gets back, he's got all the data he needs.
Yeah.
Just in case, I can't recover that data because it's blown out in the sky. Well, can you imagine if you didn't have the opportunity to do that? You could just take one picture and you had to get it right. And worse still, you couldn't even see until a week later whether
But
you got it right
you would
or
bracket it in even if you're shooting film. Or you could do.
not. Yeah, but you can do, but you're not in a position, unless you own a darkroom as well, to start manipulating those images. It's not going to happen.
I'm fascinated and intrigued by the past, but I don't want to go back there.
No, I mean,
You will one day.
I got tripped up because I said some of the old lenses were just as good as the modern ones, which they're obviously not. But you say stuff on the hoof when you're talking amongst us three. But what I was trying to say is the difference between £1,000 lens. It goes back up again. The difference between £1,000 lens and a lens you can pick up at 50 quid. But you're going to shoot with the more modern lenses if you can do. But I just think it's not maybe a discussion that we'd have now, because I think all of us wouldn't go back to film. I personally wouldn't. But I think in the future, I think you'll see more and more people doing it as it'll become more and more popular as a niche.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the opinion, though.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
It's great though.
You
isn't
agree
it?
with it, do you? Yeah, you see, Adam's happy with that one.
Well, I agree as well, because if I showed you a picture that I took last week on a film camera, for instance, you're going to look at it and think, well, yeah, it's okay, Gary, but it's not very vibrant.
Yeah, no,
it's
but
noisy.
you
That's what makes them.
You said a few podcasts back that you thought film was awesome.
Me? Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do.
It's not everybody, but you do get some people that shoot film who they're like vegans, that they're desperate to tell you that they're a vegan. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's like I shoot everything in camera.
Yeah,
They're the same, aren't
thing,
they? Yeah.
Great analogy.
You're a vegan, that's great. So what?
No, it's an event. It's an event. It's awesome. Smash the screen on the back of your camera, go out and take pictures in it. It'll change the way you take pictures for the day.
That's fine with me, because I can't even see the screen on the back of my camera.
Right, okay. Are we done with that one?
Yeah, I think
is that
so.
good?
I enjoyed that one.
This is quite a long one, but basically what they're saying here is the artist signatures that people pay for are overpriced squiggles and they look the same. Use a pen, make a nice signature and scan it. If you scribble like an infant, I love this. If you scribble like an infant, then that's just the mark you get to make on the world. Now, I'm guilty of that. I
don't get it.
Signatures.
People are paying more because there's a signature on it.
No.
No, he's talking about
The signatures that you buy, you pay £25 or $25 or whatever for somebody to make you a signature.
Oh, right.
I put one on the front of my vlogs, which isn't my signature. Somebody did that for me, and it cost me about $10.
Oh, right.
$10 is $10. It didn't cost me thousands.
I've got the same on mine.
And
I think they look nice, and when they're done
I
professionally,
didn't know people did that.
yeah, I think they're nice.
but I'm not.
Do you
I'm not
sign?
worried.
Do you sign your work? I do.
Yeah, I sign my prints.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do it in very light pencil
Yeah.
because I write like a 5-year-old. So
Do you emboss them as well?
no,
Is that you making your mark on the
Have
world?
you not got an embosser?
no, no. I don't bother doing that. I just I sign it in pencil, put the edition number on it, and that's it.
I think you should go back to that first one because it's quite contentious, that, Gary.
No, this is good. It's another good one then. This is really good. This will resonate with a lot of people, I'm sure. Doing well on social media doesn't mean you're a good photographer.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I agree with that, but it's no different to. It depends what you class as what we're talking about.
What we class it as a good photographer?
Yeah, are we talking about someone that's successful and is known by people and has people's attention, or
Yeah.
are we talking about someone that takes great pictures?
Yeah.
It's no. Social media isn't any different to how it ever used to be.
No.
It's just another way of getting people's attention. And if you wanted to be a pro photographer, particularly 20 years ago, you still had to have people's attention, didn't you?
You know what that strikes me of is sour grapes and
Yeah,
the dinosaur
absolutely.
comment. It's unfortunately, if you are a photographer in the modern era and you want to be noticed and you want to be liked, then you've got to be using social media.
Get yourself signed up to Instagram.
You know, and the people that sit there and whinge and moan about the fact that about social media are the people that are still stuck 10 years in the past.
I suppose people are getting booked to do talks now on the size of their social media content or the size of their following on social media.
Well, as
I think-
as
you know
someone
what I mean?
yeah, I mean, as someone that's just hit 100,000 on YouTube, I can tell you it's no different to when I had 80,000.
No.
No, but it's different from when you had 10,000.
yeah, it is. But does that make me a better photographer? Maybe it does. Do you know what I mean? Because I've got more people's attention now than I had before, and isn't that we've said this before, haven't we? We all take great pictures.
It does sound like sour grapes.
Yeah,
because
no,
there's
it's-
probably a lot of people out there with as many videos on YouTube that you've produced, but they've only got 5,000 subs.
Yeah.
So maybe that's just sour grapes then.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with the videos thing. I agree with the photography thing because, as I say, we know what the algorithms of YouTube are like, and I've watched people with 1,000 subs who do great videos, and I just can't fathom it. I think that people just pick up on somebody they like. And
I mean, I think
popular.
you're right. Like with the video, the picture does not make the video, does it? At all. I think it's a part of it, but it's not. That's not why people watch videos to see, because you got to get. That's just a gallery, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas on Instagram, if you want to be a pro photographer, I think you need to be on there building up a following. Maybe not now, but do you know what I mean? In 10 years' time, if you're not on there, you're not going to get any kind of commercial work.
It's the way of the world now.
Yeah.
And there's no ifs or buts.
It fascinates me what people define as popular and likable and not, because I've always said from the very beginning I've just been astounded that anybody ever watches me because I just don't understand it. And so you know, somebody
Because people love you, Paul.
no, it's not. It's,
We don't, but
it's
many
just
people do.
No, it's not. It's just, and then I see people who are brilliant and they're struggling on 500 and 1,000 subs. You know, but that.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying for 1 second just because you haven't got a big following, you're not a good photographer. I'm not saying that in any way, shape, or form. Let's not open that kind of worms.
No.
But
That's all I'm saying is what
Yeah.
what does it mean by a good photographer? Is it if it's someone that takes great pictures, then social media has no bearing on that whatsoever.
no,
But if you see part of photography as part of the business of photography, even if you're not a professional, which is essentially getting attention on your work, isn't it? Like then it does matter.
Oh,
Like
you've got
it's-
to
and it's
you've
part
got
of
to
it.
use it. You've got to use it.
I mean
Yeah.
everybody in business is involved with social media.
Yeah.
The first thing you're encouraged to do is get a Facebook page, get
It's just
people
a
to like
it's
your
just a-
Facebook page so they can see your current
If
pictures.
you want to have any kind of commercial success, you need to go where the attention is, don't you? Like everybody's attention's on social media, so go there and pull some of it for
Yeah.
you, because it's a land grab at the moment, isn't it? Like everybody's grabbing for this attention.
You're dead
and
right.
it isn't going to last forever.
No, it's not. Land grab is a really good analogy, actually.
That's all it is.
Yeah, we are lucky because we're relatively early.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of.
Land grabbers.
I think we all three of us started like putting ourselves out there, kind of midway through the social media. We weren't first,
No,
were we?
no.
But we were 4 or 5 years ago. Like we're kind of riding that second wave. Third wave will probably do okay as well. Fourth wave, I think you're going to really struggle. But it's not going to be. It's just going to be saturated.
Do you think it's harder to start a YouTube channel now?
Oh, by miles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
We're doing it with this, aren't we?
2.5 years ago, I started my YouTube channel, and I got loads of people watching, and there was hardly anybody landscape photography, and I'd say there was maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And I can think of 3 or 4 of them in my head. And since I started, there's hundreds. I think
there's
somebody
thousands,
commented to you.
I think, isn't there? Like,
somebody commented to you that they watched 60 different landscape photographers.
There's thousands
on YouTube.
Of them now.
Do you know what I'm guilty of though? And I did it last week. I went down to Wales and I made 3 vlogs. Is I just completely made it up when I got there. In other words, I ended up going to shoot something that wasn't there. So I use that then as the story behind creating that vlog. I don't actually sit down, maybe I should do, right, what I should do is maybe go out and make a vlog about this and then go there and make it. And I'd be a lot more prepared. I just wing it when I'm there.
I never do that. I never write anything down.
So you're the same as me
absolutely, I always have been, because what that'll do is it'll take the fun out of it for me. If it was a business, maybe I would do something a little bit different. But no, I mean, so for example, when we talk about inspiration, this is why I love Instagram, and people will notice that I comment a lot on other people's photographs, because I'm like you, I just love looking at you. I like looking at people's images.
Yeah.
And there's a guy who's taking a picture of some poppies, and it's inspired me to go out and vlog that area. And he's great because he's given me the location details, and so people's images inspire me to go out.
Sure.
And shoot. Yeah. I either shoot off camera, so I'm not vlogging it, or vlog it as well. And I think I mentioned on my first woodland shoot the people who inspired me to go and shoot woodland. I didn't shoot woodland because I thought, well, hang on, the woodland photography's got a little bit more popular with certain vloggers doing it. I did it because it was a new genre for me, and I found it really, really interesting. I'm not very good at it, and that inspired me to go out and shoot.
Yeah, I mean that kind of rolls on to actually supporting each other, doesn't it? As photographers,
yeah.
Which I think there's sometimes some egos get in the way, don't they? And we're not supportive of each other. I think that, like we're saying, there's possibly a bit of sour grapes in that they're seeing someone with a little bit more success, however you define that success, up there on social media, and they're feeling a bit lesser for it. Because I can't remember if I said it here or on a video, but it's the comparison is a terrible thing, isn't it? Because it just leads to, it's the thief of joy, as Roosevelt said.
Absolutely.
And that's all. I think that's probably a touch of what's going on there. But we can get over that by supporting each other and, like you say, indulging in other photography. Charlie Waite just released a blog today, I think, about how we should buy each other's work as well. Because we love photography. Like, don't just put your own work up on the wall. Buy another photographer's work. Because if you love photography, then you're going to want to see other people's work as well, and you get inspired by it.
Have you bought other people's work?
I've got some spare walls that I just can't afford it at the moment. But I've got some empty. I've had a couple of gifts that I've got up. But
what about yourself? I've got gifts. I got gifted this hat. Yeah, somebody sent it to me from America, which was really kind of them. And I've forgotten your name, but thank you very much. Do you buy other people's work, Gary?
No.
I've got other art. I've got other artwork, but not.
I don't even hang my own work.
I have.
Let alone anybody else's.
I bought images. From other people.
Have you?
Yeah.
I've never
and I've also bought photography books.
I buy a lot of
from
photography
other
books,
people.
yeah.
I mean,
I buy calendars.
James Bell's photography book is a friend of mine as well. It's an awesome set of images.
There's so much you can get from flicking through a photography book of all different genres.
Yeah. I just love it. I mean, it's my nighttime reading when I'm in bed, is to look through.
I still haven't had my D-Day one delivered, though.
Have
I
you
think
not?
It must have been so popular that it's not been delivered yet.
But I just love...
Yeah, the one I was telling you about last week.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I know you, as I say, your Facebook page, Gary, encourages people to post their images on, and I go on there a lot.
Has Gary got a Facebook page?
He's got a Facebook page, yeah. But you've got a Facebook page, Adam.
I have, yeah. What's next, Gary?
Right. Okay, that was quite interesting. What's quite interesting?
Right.
No, that conversation was quite interesting about social media.
I'm glad you liked it.
Right, 99% of what people call fine art photography has absolutely nothing to do with fine art.
Well,
So 99% of what people call fine art photography has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with fine art.
That riles me.
What's it saying? That not all my long exposure photography is not fine art photography? Is that what it's saying?
Well, it must be, yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, the thing is I know the definition of fine art, or the rough definition of fine art photography, is the photographer visualizing something in his head and shooting it from an artistic point of view. So how does that person making that comment, or a group of people making that comment, know what's going on in my head?
No, but
So all my long exposure photography is fine art photography.
If you think it is, and you're visualizing that from an artistic point of view, then of course it is.
That's what I just said, isn't
Yeah,
it? Visualization.
I agree.
Print.
I'm not talking about you. I wasn't disagreeing with you. I was disagreeing with that comment.
So I am a fine art photographer.
Yes,
then
you are.
Nice
If you think you are.
Yeah, but don't forget, it says unpopular. So that's why when I'm reading it out, we're all getting rather agitated.
I know.
So what do you call fine art then? Because
I've no idea.
I've said that. That's the definition of it. Roughly, it's you visualize something in your head. It's like, for a fine art shot for me is when somebody gets a snow scene and wipes everything out, and all they've got is a little fence post going up the mountain, because that's what he's visualized in his head. If he'd have took the perfect exposure, it wouldn't have looked anything like that. You would have had outlines of the hills and everything. That's because he visualized that in his head when he was stood there.
Well, go back in the summer when you can see the path.
Yeah, or in post processing, he thought that's going to look brilliant if I make it high key. So saying that is that's annoying me. I don't get annoyed very often.
They are unpopular.
Yeah.
Paul,
I know.
they are unpopular. Okay.
I mean, people get really upset about it, though, don't they? I don't get it. I don't care either.
They do, yeah.
You know what? I've said this, and I was going to say it on my last vlog, and I deleted it. It was the comments that you get that people say, you're not a proper landscape photographer if you only walk 20 yards from your car, and you're not a proper landscape photographer if you don't know the name of the mountains that you're shooting. Absolute bunkum. There are people in wheelchairs that they can only get 20 yards from the car. There are people that are shooting brilliant pictures in the Lake District who live in America who haven't got a clue what they're shooting. Of course, what I was alluding to is the only thing that ever riles me in life is when people say what you should and shouldn't do, or what you should and shouldn't be.
I made a vlog once, but I never released it. I drove back from the Isle of Skye, and I just had this madcapped idea, and I thought, what about if I had a driver's seat challenge? So in other words, while I was driving back from the Isle of Skye, could I see something from the car, roll the window down, and take a really good landscape shot from my driver's? And all the way down from the Isle of Skye, I've vlogged it, but I've never put it out.
No, funnily enough, I don't know. I did exactly the same.
I got some great shots
driving through the Cairngorms in Scotland last year. And I got my telephoto lens out, and I leant against the window, held it steady, and took shots. Now, I didn't put it in the video because I didn't have time, but some beautiful shots.
Scotland's amazing for that, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely,
yeah. The views you get from the road are incredible.
Yeah, and those viewing areas, they're not just viewing areas. Some of them are just absolutely amazing.
It goes back to that snobbery value for me. I mean, I mentioned to you guys off camera something that somebody mentioned in on one of the comments on your Facebook page. You know, Gary's got a Facebook page, I don't know. And he was in a hide. Shooting birds.
Right.
And there was there was an 18-year-old lad shooting with a Canon D7200 or something. And this bloke stood next to him with a Z7 with a big long lens, and he says, you know what, if you want to get good shots, you've got to get rid of that camera and you've got to get a Z7. And one of the guys who comments on your Facebook page listened to this for about 5 minutes and then sounded him out and said, what are you talking about? He said, this lad's 18-year-old, he's got a really good camera, he's going to get great shots, and all you're going to do is put him off.
Yeah.
And when this guy eventually left, the guy who was saying he had the Z7 and the big humongous substitute for something else, and other guys in the hide said he's been like that for months, and it was really a breath of fresh air to sound him out. I mean, if you like,
you can't account for a bell end.
No, you can't. You can't. But it doesn't matter what you're shooting, where you're shooting. It doesn't matter if you don't know what it is you're shooting, and it doesn't matter if you're 20 yards from the camera or you've climbed up Mount Everest.
No.
As long as you enjoy it.
I think there's a lot to be gained though, and I do encourage people to step away from the car.
Of course.
Because I mean, it's easy to get sucked into it, especially in Scotland.
Yeah.
Because you can see so much. You can discover a lot just by even 5 minutes walk from the car.
We encourage that, of course.
That's what you're using. You both use the right term. You're encouraging people to do it, but you're not telling them that they're wrong for not.
No, absolutely.
But not everybody can.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the point I was trying to make with my driver's seat challenge. Somebody's going to make a vlog on that now. It's going to do really well. It's going to tell me. I've still got the footage actually, and I took some really nice pictures.
I'm going out this afternoon. That's what I'm going to do.
Do you know what I was
Driver's seat
doing?
challenge.
Seriously, I pulled over on the side of the roads where you're not supposed to pull over. I was backing up as well on dual carriageways because I just wanted to get back a bit to grab a shot. So it's quite amusing.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
I should put it out.
Mini rant from myself, but it's when people tell you what they should and shouldn't be doing.
All right, okay, right. So unpopular. This is quite interesting. We're only on number 8. Blimey. Let me know when, guys, and we'll scrap this if you want. But this is quite interesting. The vast majority of photographers have a massively overblown sense of self-importance.
I would say that other than the people that I've mentioned who tell people what they should and shouldn't be doing, I'd say the 99.9% of the photography community have been completely the opposite. The people who I've met, they've not had a self-importance thing. You two guys haven't. The people who I meet out in the field haven't. The people who comment on videos and stuff like that, 99.9% of them aren't. They're just lads and ladies who go out and enjoy shooting.
Yeah, that's definitely the case when you meet them in real life.
Yeah.
I think online there is a level of bravado sometimes, isn't
There's
it?
some keyboard warriors. What did somebody call me a couple of weeks ago? Gobshite? Thanks. We have got feelings.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Because if you're promoting yourself, it can come across like that, can't it? But so you've got to try and strike a balance between promoting yourself and coming across as down to earth. I think that's at least what I try to do.
Yeah, I think if we were being paid thousands of pounds to do what we're doing, because essentially we've been doing these 12 podcasts and we're not earning a penny, and the chances of earning a lot of money are not high. I don't think that we deserve negative comments from somebody who's sat in their house to come out and swear at us and call us names. I don't think we have. I don't think so.
People can say what they like, can't they? But I think there's as an artistic endeavour, there's a level of self-doubt and self-criticism there already, isn't there? So
there is,
which can lead.
It's not cricket, though, is it? It's not.
No,
cricket.
I mean that's part of the artistic process, I think. So then you've got to try and promote yourself. So you
have to have an ego to a certain degree, otherwise you wouldn't pick a camera up and talk to it.
No, exactly.
Because if you think, okay, that guy's an ass, then you try doing it. That's the answer. You pick a camera up, walk along a city centre street with people looking at you with a camera pointing at yourself, talk into it, and obviously don't just gibber into it, talk sensibly into it.
Yeah. Well, there's got to be. If you point
it's not easy.
If you point your camera yourself and upload a video onto YouTube, there's no doubt you have some kind of wish to be heard. Some ego.
Everybody on the planet's got an ego. I just can't think of anybody who is vlogging at the moment that they come across as being huge egos. They all come across as being down to earth, and
I don't know. I mean, we don't know who they're talking about in there, do we? But I said, there are some bellends out there.
Oh, there is. Absolutely. Couldn't have put it better myself.
Do you want to name them?
Keep going. What's the next one?
I don't know if this is very exciting, but just because it's bright and it's shot at 1.4, it doesn't make it a good picture. I don't quite understand
get that.
No. Are they talking about just blowing out a background?
Yeah, shallow depth of field, loads of bokeh on there. What they're saying is, just because you shoot a picture like that, it doesn't make it a good picture.
No, that's true.
It's true, I suppose.
Got the composition right still, haven't you?
Okay, well, let's just do one more then, and then we'll go back to the first one. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Just very quickly, because this is quite interesting.
Big pause there.
Yeah. A photographer's obsession with gear is inversely proportional to the quality of their photography. That's well written. So a photographer's obsession with gear, that's what we mentioned earlier, is inversely proportional to the quality of their photography. What they're saying is better gear doesn't make for a better picture.
All the gear, no idea.
All the gear, no idea.
What it's actually saying is people who obsess and talk about it all the time.
All right, so we go back to the first one then?
Yeah, go on then.
You happy with that, guys?
Yeah.
This is quite interesting. 99% of photography schools and degrees are a rip-off. So 99% of photography schools and degrees are a rip-off. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that doesn't just pertain to photography, especially in this country. I think there are a lot of young people these days that are going to uni and getting tens of thousands of pounds into debt for degrees that are not going to provide them with any better chances of career progression.
If you're, in photography, if you're going to university now and you're spending 15 grand a year on that tuition, you come out at the end of it with 45 grand's worth of debt and a piece of paper that says
you've got a degree
that you can take a picture with a camera.
Yeah.
I don't get that at all. I mean, that is an utter rip-off. I think, like you said, with some of the university courses generally, it's an absolute national scandal that is designed to just continue this system of having the class system, basically, of having these people slot into the middle class, having done university degrees, just be workers, basically, and make good money. I think there's so much within the university system now that is entirely built on debt as well.
It's enslaved a generation. I was really, really lucky that I was pre-loans. So I got everything on a grant because I was a mature student when I went to university, and I studied a vocational degree. And then it was a lot harder to actually go to university because they didn't have the plethora of degrees that they are at the moment. But when you're seeing children or young adults doing a degree, and after 3 years, then they're getting a job that you don't need to be degree qualified for, and they've got 45 or 50,000 pounds worth of debt. And then what I'm seeing on the flip side is I'm seeing a lot of younger people. We just had our house renovated, so a lot of the people who did the work were in their early 20s. They left school at 16, and they've got thriving businesses going, and we're earning really good. It's
a lot easier nowadays to be self-taught because of the advent of something like YouTube. And there's lots of online courses like your course, Adam. It's beer money, if you want to call it. It's beer money, but you can learn so much about photography. And not only that, but also you don't need qualifications to be a photographer of any shape or form.
I mean, clearly from what the online stuff that I've created with the subscription thing, like I do think there's something to be said for paying some money for a photography education. And I think you should really, because you can be more selective about where you're getting it from. Obviously, you can do it free on YouTube, but it's helpful to have it all in one place sometimes. But in terms of, like, imagine if you're an 18-year-old, you go to university, you do a 3-year degree, you come out at 21 with a photography degree, and then is that person then expecting, or are they feeling entitled to then have a job in the professional industry? I mean, you and I as professional photographers, are we going to make way for somebody that has just come out of university with a piece of paper? We're not, are we? Like, it's... No.
I'm just thinking if somebody who was 18 years old, let's say if it was my son and he says, I want to be a photographer, Dad, where would I point him? What direction would we point him? I would say, rather than getting into debt to go and do the degree in photography, go and find a good photographer and tell him that you'll work with him free for 3 years and then have a part-time job on top. And so when you come out, you're going to have 3 years worth of experience, and then you're going to have, and you're not going to come out with a mountain of debt.
Absolutely. Because a lot of people's parents are funding it as well, aren't they? So if they can fund their lifestyle while they're still living at home and they're doing that for free for 3 years, it's absolutely. And I mean, it's just...
And the thing is, what do you also learn what do you learn for 3 years as a photographer? Once you've learnt your photography,
Well, I think they
they
start teaching you. Well, obviously they'll teach you the photographic skills, and then it'll be a background in business, social media, as we've said. But that's all stuff that I think we've self-taught.
Yeah, you can learn that on the fly, can't you?
I'm not really qualified to comment on the photography degrees type of thing. All I can say is somebody like yourself who's built up a business from scratch, and I presume you didn't go and do a photography
never.
degree.
It's all self-taught.
And somebody like yourself who's now got a relatively fledgling business, you're not as long in the tooth as Gary, and you haven't, and you're both eminently successful in your careers. I just don't know what you, if you'd have gone to university, what you would have benefited from.
One thing I was thinking about the other day in terms of this is what I think is still a valid degree if you get it from a decent place is going to film school. Because I kind of wish I'd done that, because if you as a sort of fledgling or aspiring filmmaker, whatever you want to call me, with the videos I make, I do wish that I had some background in the bigger productions. So say, like, there are some people that have been to film school, they've come out of film school 2 or 3 years, and they're directing Hollywood films. The director of Black Panther did something similar to that, and that's been a huge success. So going to film school and learning how these massive productions work, understanding the relationships between the director and the cinematographer and all that kind of thing, there's something still, I think that would still be a worthwhile degree to some extent, where you can't get that. That can't be self-taught.
Yes.
You can't understand all those different relationships and that web of things that goes into these big productions. Yes, you can do what we've done and be an independent one-man band.
I think 30 years ago it would have been easier to go into an industry like that without the qualifications, because people like Ron Howard. Obviously, he came out of Happy Days and the Fonz, but got into directing afterwards, and got in that way. But
that wouldn't make you a better vlogger.
Sorry?
That wouldn't make you a better vlogger, would it?
I think
if you had a degree in filmmaking.
I think it made it a lot easier for you when you first started.
There's a difference between being behind the camera and being the on-screen talent.
Sure. I mean, but that would be great if you were going to go into that field of work.
I know that there are the most eminent landscape vlogger in the UK anyway. I know his background. He went to college, and I don't know whether he did photography and film or a combination of the two. But prior to vlogging, he had his own business taking pictures of stuff on tables and that, and also did video production work. And that is obvious with his videos that he's got a background in videography.
Sure.
That he's maybe been taught, and I think a lot of vloggers have followed his blueprint.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's even about getting the shot, because I think anyone that's good at photography can do that. I'm talking more about, like, how do you create a production? How do you go about getting a production funded? You know what I mean? All that kind of thing. How as a director, is your role purely about the story, or is it about the actual cinematography as well? I know some directors do both, some don't do much cinematography. So it's that kind of thing. I would have liked to have been able to move in those into those big productions, which probably I won't be able to do now. But
in the world of photography, it's simple, isn't it? You're rated on how good your work is.
Yeah. So
if somebody wanted to come and work for me here, I wouldn't ask them what qualifications they had, because that's not relevant.
So you pay 45 grand for a degree, a piece of paper that says you got a 2-1 in photography, and your pictures aren't that much better than...
I mean, I can talk about this from a personal point of view, but not photography related, because I was responsible for employing people in the NHS, and I remember having a chat with HR, because they used to say for a certain pay grade, they'd need a master's degree. I said, you've got to put master's degree or equivalent experience, because doing a 10,000 word dissertation is not experience, and in certain roles, somebody who's got 3 years experience doing something hands-on is going to be far more qualified to do the job than somebody that's got a piece of paper.
Yeah, it goes back to the very principle of an apprenticeship as well, doesn't it? Like, learning on the job.
I think that's what I said.
It's so much more valuable, isn't it?
Is if I was encouraging my son or daughter, that's what I would say. Get under the wing of somebody that you admire and say you'll do it for nothing, and save yourself a load of debt. But
you are getting other things at university, aren't you? You're getting the social life and that kind of sharing of ideas and things. But you can get that elsewhere.
When I was at uni, but this is not a new thing. When I was at uni, there were people who were doing degrees, and I was in 40 hours a week at least on clinics and things like that. But there were some people that were in lectures for 4 or 5 hours a week, and the rest of the time they're smoking pot and drinking. And luckily back then the parents weren't paying.
It's not
for
a bad
it.
thing then, is it? University.
No, I think
if you think about because
I've never done drugs, by the way.
There's talk about how people have forced opinion about the student loan. It's not a real loan. That's what you hear. The students saying it. They've been fed this propaganda basically about student loans not being real loans and that they're a good deal. And it's like,
you're in
45
debt.
grand's worth of debt. It doesn't matter how you pay it back.
Yeah.
You still owe that money to somebody, to the state.
Yeah.
And it's charged interest. So if you don't pay it off, it goes up. And it's like, oh my God, it's just like, it's bonkers that entire system is built on debt.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a national scandal.
And what it does is it's the powers that be have enslaved a generation.
Yeah,
that's what they've done. They've enslaved them to follow their orders, and if you don't, then this is
you've
the
got to have a job
consequences.
because you've got to pay off this student loan, haven't you? Like,
exactly.
You've got no chance of being entrepreneurial because you're saddled with this debt.
Yeah.
Like, it's terrible.
Heyo.
Anyway, should we end on that?
I think we will. I think we've opened cans of worms and are interested in what.
But I like that. That was
comments.
good. That was good. We only covered about 6 or 7 of them.
I think the beauty is that they're not our opinions, other than that we've given our opinions. And I'm not saying that people. I don't think we're saying that people who are in the middle of a photography degree that you're wasting your time.
I think you should leave. Come work for me.
You're going to be bombarded now
Save
with
your money.
emails.
Save your money and come work with me.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well.
See ya.
Yeah.